Okay. It's 3:30. Let's do this. Hello and welcome. My name is Magnus. I work for Pillar Technology, and I know a little bit of Git. And hopefully, some of you will learn a little bit more as a result of this presentation. So I'll cover some basics of Git. These are the core data types you'll see. You have the blobs, which is your content, your files, your images, whatever you want to put in Git. You have trees, which contains these files, and other trees. They are your folders. And then you have commits. We have commit messages, and that refers to a root tree, and then there's a hierarchy going there. And then we have refs, which are typically referred to as branches. So one thing to note about these things is that all these colored things are immutable. Once you commit, you cannot actually change the object because it has a hash. So if you change any content, you're going to change the hash. So you see that you have a commit here, which has a tree and some contents. There comes a lot of times where we commit stuff that we're not entirely proud of. What's good about the refs are that they are immutable. We can point these to something else. So we can take this commit, make some interesting changes to it, and repoint the branch to it. So while these commits and trees still exist, they're not going to be visible. So as long as you don't show any of this, you can get away with a lot of cleaning up history before you share code. So I will go through a few different scenarios, and at any point, feel free to ask questions, or if there are any of these scenarios, if you have any common Git issues that keep recurring to you, feel free to ask about them, and I might have some sort of workaround for it. So one of the more common things is you make a commit, and then you realize you left out some files. So you have a commit, which is not complete because you have 3 unstaged files. So the way to go about this is you add the files as you normally would, and then you do commit amend. Commit amend will create a new commit, kind of like this. It will take the new contents and create a new commit and replace, so that it appears that you committed everything in the first place. I'll just show an example of this. This is probably too small. So we add a README file, but we see that the turtles file is still there. So if we do git log, we see the commit. But if you do git show, which will show the contents of that particular commit compared to the previous one, or in this case, the beginning of time, we only have the one file, not the turtles files. So this is where the restarting it. Software. So git add and then git commit amend. Now you get your editor up again, and you can even change the commit message. But for right now, I guess I should add the file as well. We have one commit with 2 files. Why is this doing this? Another very common thing is you add too many files. And that is, as soon as you realize that the better, because if you do it at the beginning of a project and then you realize it later, things are a little more hairy, which we'll actually get to. But if you're lucky and discover it right away, for instance, you have your double secret password file here, and for some reason you add it. And then you put it in your README, never share your password. But accidentally you did add your password. So as it happens, this project might need the file to exist. So you don't want to remove it, but you want to let Git know that you don't care about it anymore and you don't want it to be in source control. So ideally those kind of files should be in the git ignore file, such that they are not accidentally added. For files that are tracked, they are not covered by git ignore. So there's another handy workaround for that, which I'll get to later. But for now, we have those two files. Or do I? Actually didn't have this one. So we have two files. The way to go about that is to do git rm and say cached. Git rm cached will remove it from the index or unstage the file. It will not actually remove the physical file, so it will still be there, but it will appear as being deleted. And then you can go ahead and do your git commit amend. And now the file is no longer in source control. If you do happen to have some sort of file that are in the config YAML or something like that, now if you were to change the password to actually make use of it, Git will think that it's changed. So if you want the file to not, if you want Git to not think that it's actually changed, there's a update index, assume unchanged, if I can spell it correctly, and then you give the file name. Now Git doesn't care about the changes to the file, so you can change all you want, even though it's in source control. Git doesn't care about it. So that is handy for files where files are already in source control. You cannot remove them, but you want to change some part of them. You don't want to risk adding secret information to it. Moving along. How do I what? Oh, good question. So the way you undo it is you say, no assume changed. Now it will be tracked again. And there's I think the only way to see what files are actually assume unchanged like that is to do else files with some weird flag that I can never remember. T, which is semi-deprecated, so you might want to use it only half the time. But in this case, if you were to do the assume unchanged on config YAML, I think it's T maybe, no? Nothing like not working. There's a flag for it. I don't recall what it's called. It's something similar. It's in ls files. That is one question I've actually received before, and I've promised them that I would look it up, but this is probably the third time I've promised to look it up. Probably what you would want to do is set it to not be assume unchanged, and then stash it and pull it and stash pop. So it's a small price to pay to not share your passwords with the world. So yeah, that's the workflow. You do rm cached and you git amend. So let's say that we have a commit that we want to just get rid of it. We did some stupid mistake and we just want to start over. So we're on the feature branch, we're on commit E, and we want to go back to D. So this is where reset comes in handy. Git reset hard. So head refers to the commit you're at this point, and the caret gives you one parent back, so the parent of this commit. And we tell Git that we want the index along with the working directory to be pointing to that. That's what hard does. So let's say we want to remove this this one commit. And this is what you get for doing that. So you need to do the new assume changed, and now you can do it. Now this commit is gone, and you can repeat whatever you wanted to do, but do it correctly this time. That is pretty easy to do if you're actually, I can't read that. If you're actually on if the commit you want to remove is on top. If it happens to be a commit that is not on top, if you committed more stuff and then you realize this decommit has password in it, I want to remove it. So it gets a little bit more interesting this way, but there's a very easy command to use in this case, which is our old favorite git rebase. So the onto flag to rebase will tell Git that we want to take whatever comes after the D commit, which is E and F, and we want to kind of cut and paste these two and paste them on top of D caret, which happens to be the parent of D. So they end up here, and we get a new feature. For instance, commit that one. So now we want to remove this more info commit. So we want to find the SHA in question. So git rebase. You take the SHA, you say onto, and then the SHA with the caret, and it will take those commits and reapply them on top. And we have an interesting merge conflict as a result. So I have a merge conflict with myself, which is all sorts of interesting. But yeah, that's what happens. So I think this is what we want to do. So if you have a merge conflict in a rebase, you say rebase continue. Actually, you need to add the file as well. So now that commit that adds that one line that is stupid is no longer there. And that's how you can get away with adding passwords in some stages. But if you have it, very far in the past, there are other approaches. So this is something that I've seen a number of times. You're working on a story, you've done a few commits on that, and then your boss comes along and tells you, you need to do this bug fix, drop everything else. So you start a new feature, and you do some work, and then you realize all this code that has not been tested yet is on top of this. So you can do the same approach using rebase. So in this case, we want to say master, or rather, we want to say feature 1. So anything that comes after feature 1, in this case just the F, but if you had more commits, it would be all of them. And you want to paste them on top of master. So this is the syntax here. Git rebase feature 1 onto master. For instance, let's actually make it more. So I guess a quick poll. What is your favorite programming language? Not C++. Okay. Since we have C++, we're going to make a C++ app. Thank you. And I don't know C++, so I'm just going to have to wing it. I think there's a main thing, right? So let's imagine we're creating a calculator. What would be a good... what's that? A bunch of includes. Yeah, let's create one thing that creates adds 2 numbers and return a plus b or what have you. This is obviously not going to compile, but we don't care. I think this is the first time I've done this in C++, so thank you for that. So imagine we're creating a new feature where we add some sort of subtract method, I guess. You work along, and along comes your boss, fix this bug, and you start working on fixing the bug. So you realize there's no stuff.h. Instead, you want to have math.h or math or whatever it's called in C++ these days. Oops. So then you realize, what's this work in progress thing doing on my branch? And then you realize what you did. So git rebase master, or rather feature 1 onto master. And now feature 1 is no longer to be seen because we don't want it anymore. Yes. No, it's still on feature 1. We're on a branch called feature 2. So if we, for instance, were to do a source tree or what have you, insert your favorite way of visualizing. Okay, this is probably not my favorite tool, because I don't see anything. This is probably my favorite. You have both features there. So it's still, and even if the branch were gone, you can still recover that, which I'll come back to. Now, for instance, imagine when you want to make a change to a commit in the past. So similar to how we did initially, we added a removed file in the top commit. What if we have this scenario where a few commits back, we realize we have a spelling error, or we put some obscene message that we don't want our boss to see? It might have happened to me. So let's find a good candidate to change this. Let's say we want to add that please back to the never share your password. So you want to find the commit in question. So it's 79C, what have you. And the syntax now is to say git rebase -i, where I is interactive. And you want to give it the commit and the caret to do the interactive rebase starting from the parent of whatever you have. So what you end up with, if you do that, you get a your favorite editor or some editor that happens to be the default in my case. Which is Vim. So you get these options here. So by default, Git will try to pick all of those commits, which will just reapply that particular commit. You can do all of these interesting things. You can remove commits. You can edit them. You can squash them. Combine several of them together, and you can do reword, which will only change the commit message. But in this case, I want to actually edit this file. So I say edit. So now Git has taken me back. If I can figure out how to work this app, to this state. So we're no longer on the feature. We're in a detached state, and we have all of the files of that commit are staged, but we want to change this one file. So what we do is we open our editor of choice. Let's actually do it in Emacs just for fun. So now I need to figure out how to use this Emacs thing. And it's gonna complain. I'm actually an Emacs user, so I like this. So please, and then you type whatever you need to get out of the editor. You see that we have a file that's about that has been changed, so it's read, not track or not staged. So what we need to do now is do git add on that file. So one git command, or one option to a lot of different git commands that is probably not used enough is p, short for patch. So whenever you see that, it's probably useful. You can do this for add, which will take all of these changes one by one and let you select yes or no if you want to add that particular one. So in this case, I want to say yes. This also gives you a chance to do a quick review of your code and make sure you don't have bad remarks about coworkers, misspellings, profanity, that kind of thing. So now it's staged. So because we're rebasing, we're not going to commit it. We're going to say rebase, should actually be in this line, rebase continue as such, which will take your change and create a commit. And you get a chance to change your commit message as well. And I have no idea why I'm getting a merge conflict with myself again, but that seems legit. Oh, same issue I had before. So having issues with yourself is probably your least favorite person to deal with. But we fixed the conflict and rebase continued again, and now we should be in this state where, okay, that's a little too premature. We're in this state where we have a new history, the file has the message that we want, and it appears as it was there always. Now, if you some point early in the project committed some sort of file that shouldn't have gone there, which might have happened to me at some point, and you want to remove all the traces of it, we have basically a global thermonuclear war. And you have this scenario, for instance. You have a lot of commits. Everything is good all the way here. Then someone added a password. And hilarity ensued afterwards. So you want to, in one fell swoop, you want to remove the password file from all of this. And here you have branches and whatnot, and it's going to be a mess to take care of. Fortunately, the Git has a chainsaw called filter branch. Here be dragons. This is how you can use git filter branch to remove all traces of this file. I'll show you a real world example. So, are there any Rails developers? What is your least favorite feature of Rails, or the one thing that gives you the most amount of grief? Asset pipeline. I have no idea where that lives. This will serve as an example, I guess. So we want to remove this documentation that talks about the pipeline because no one should use it. If you have issues with that, go see Mark. So the command here is, which you can't really see again. So git filter branch. So the F flag will, by default, filter branch will create a backup for you. And if you have a backup, it will fail fast and not let you do it again. F will override that and let you do a new filter branch. Tree filter will take your commits and apply whatever command you want to execute on that. It will basically check out that commit, run this command, and then commit whatever is the result. RM is a basic Unix command that will just remove the files, and F will make sure that it doesn't fail if the file does not exist. So let's try this. So this will take forever. So now I need to fill the time for another 2 hours. So let's not do this. Fortunately, there's a slightly faster way to do it, which is to use index filter, which will do the same thing, but rather than checking out all the files, it will work directly with the git index and do raw git commands on it. So git rm cached with this ignore unmatch flag, which is the equivalent of F, which they couldn't have used because that was too short. We'll do the same trick, but it will be a lot faster. Probably not fast enough though, but we'll see how far we get here. And again, because we're working just with the index, when I say cached. So this is still going to take forever, but it's slightly less forever. Yes. Yes, which is why it takes forever. But for the sake of argument, let's just do it to the last 100 commits, which is still taking forever, but even less so. Okay, we're done. Now, this file does not exist anymore. There's no asset pipeline file. And it doesn't appear in history anywhere until 100 commits back, give or take. So that's how you solve the asset pipeline issue with Rails. Thermonuclear war. Since we're on our favorite project of all times, Rails, there are some other interesting filter branches you can do. Let's take this this history And as we look through here, we see that something's not right. This community has a lot more yelling going on. So let's take the same, take the last 100 commits. And now instead of using this index filter, we can do a message filter. And again, this will pipe the message through a filter and change the commit message effectively. So we change A to Z to A to Z uppercase. This should be relatively fast. More apt. Or if you want to do the opposite. Where it's so quiet. Or if you want to take some word here. So base is one of those. If you haven't seen, or if you're not aware of there's a base gem by Gary Bernhardt, which will import everything under the sun into one object, so you can access any methods from anywhere, which is very useful for something. So let's say we want to change all the currencies of base, just because we can, with turtles. And that's not how you said. I need a ending quote. Now we have a lot of turtles. The turtles module is documented in the turtles module. So you can do a lot of fun things with Git this way. So that is roughly what I had in mind as far as content goes. And at this point, any questions about Git in general, or any tomato throwing at me is welcomed. Yes. The solution is take the Windows boxes and install Linux. The slightly faster solution is to make sure that you use Git attributes and make proper use of the CRLF business there. That way it will be stored in the file. In Git, it will store it canonically as just line feeds, because that's the way it's supposed to be. Then you can do a filter branch, for instance. But yes, you need to either redo it or you'd have interesting merge conflicts. But going forward, you would have less of a problem. Ideally, you should do this at the start of the project, especially if you have Windows users. Make sure you have a good git ignore file and a good git attributes file. And make sure to normalize everything to just line feeds. That way, the files, when they're checked out on Windows, will have the CRLF, but as you commit them back, it will get to BLF. Hey, does that answer your question? Yeah. Any other questions? This theater is so big. Yes. Yes. Okay. The question is the difference between tree filter and index filter. Tree filter will check out all the files. So it will actually write the history to disk, and then it will run the command, and then Git will check whatever changed and committed. So you have a lot more I/O going on there. So it will have to swap out files left and right. Index filter will go straight to the index. And this works well if you have smaller changes, I guess. If you just want to remove files, or if you want to, I'm trying to think of a good example, but whenever you have something that you can use an index command, rather than arbitrary units command. So if you have a scenario where you can't use the index filter, you might be stuck with tree filter. But I'm not sure how common that is. Yes, somewhere. Oh, it will retain all the metadata. Well, obviously not the one you changed, but yeah, anything you don't tell it to change, it will retain, and it will not. Obviously, you won't be able to do this and retain the original branches, but it will restick together branches so they appear to be branches, or rather merges. So you'll still have the same structure. You'll just have different contents. They're going to be in a world of hurt. The question is, are people going to be in a world of hurt if you push stuff? Yes, they are. So this is something you should not do lightly. But in the case of we have the password, you obviously need to. And you deserve to be in a world of hurt if you do that. Yeah, anytime you have to use push with a force flag, you're doing something wrong. General, what do you call it? Public service announcement. Never use push, or never use force push. If you need to be forceful about it, there's a flag called force with lease, which will kind of do the same, but it's more, it's safer. It will not blindly override what's on the server. It will make sure that what you have, or what you think the server has, matches what the server does have. So if someone commits in between, and you do force release, it's gonna fail. Whereas with just the force flag, it's gonna blindly override it. So never use force or push with force. Yes. Yes. It does, yes. So if you want to do a complete thermonuclear war, you need to specify all the branches that you want to change. You can specify more than one. So if you have master and develop, you need to specify both, or if not, you're going to be in a world of confusion. But yes, any branch you want to change, you need to tell it that you update this, please. So I think that sums up the questions, or the. Favorite tool, this is a funny question. Favorite tool for managing Git, yes, Emacs. If you don't want to learn Emacs, I think source tree is fairly decent. But yeah, I would say Emacs has one of the best Git integrations there is. I couldn't quite understand you. Is this submodules? Don't use submodules. If you have to use submodules, you can do, I want to say it's a post-commit hook, in which you can do a submodule update. So that's actually, I actually have a project that has, if I can remember, it's, yeah. This is an unrelated talk, but this covers bisect. So I actually have a submodule here. So if we, for instance, go back in history, you're going to end up with this state where you have modified, new commits, and what have you. There is a git hooks post commit. I want to say it's post. It's not post. One of these. I think it's actually not in here. Yeah, post commit hook. So you need to create a hook, get hooks, and why not? I think you need to make it executable as well. So now if you check to master, nothing works because I did something wrong. There is a hook for it. I'm confused why this doesn't work. Where's this? No, this is not commit. This is checkout, post checkout. There you go, submodule update. What do I have in here? So there's a flag to stash untracked files. So now you have So now if you go back to master, it will do the magic for you. So now whenever you check out, you're going to have the correct submodule, if there's ever such a thing as a correct submodule, but that's a different point. You said easy way to do what? Update files to get ignored after they're staged? Is that your question? If they're already tracked and you want to kind of reapply the get ignore with whatever is, yes. You can, the easiest way is probably to do what you should never do, which is get add dot. So if you were to say we're, for instance, going to our favorite project of all times, Rails. And let's go crazy. Let's ignore Ruby files. So the easiest way to reapply everything is to do a rmrf and then get add again. There's a slightly faster way, which is to do rm get index. That will make everything go away. So now if you do get add dot, it will do an amazingly small amount of stuff. I thought that you would have added a lot more, or removed a lot more. I guess that's not the syntax. That's probably more like it. So now we can go about rewriting Rails in some other language, which I hope answers your question. And I think that's all as far as questions go. So anyone who's too shy to speak up, you can come see me afterwards. Other than that, thank you for your patience, and I hope you learned something about Git.